We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Coach's Corner edition of the Fox in Sports podcast. Along with my good friend Marcio Shayer, I am Todd Fox, and you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Fox in Sports. That's 2 X's, Fox in Sports, and on Instagram at Fox in Sports Podcast. And you can also subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Fox in Sports. And today we have a very, very special guest joining us, Mr. Billy Gazonas. Billy, in 1977, was the Hermann Trophy Award winner for soccer, and that's the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy for football. He was also the Soccer Magazine, Monthly Magazine College Player of the Year, Division I First Team All-American, team selected by the National Soccer Coaches Association. Let's see here, Soccer America Magazine selection as one of the nation's top 10 players. I know you guys were the national champions in 1977 as well. You had a professional career, 78 to 80 with the Tulsa Roughnecks. That's how I grew to know Billy. And then 1981 Calgary Boomers in the NASL, then MISL 81 to 82 with the New York Arrows, and you guys won a championship there. And in 82 to 84 with the Kansas City Comets. So, Billy, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Todd.
Awesome. And then Marcio, you kick it off. You're good.
Thank you. Well, Bill, thank you, for being here with us. Todd just read an amazing resume that you have in soccer. But I'm always curious when I talk to people that play the game, and I'm always curious about going back when you were a kid. Like, what was that spark? Like, what made you as a kid? And of course, as a kid, not necessarily thinking that you're going to become a professional athlete, but what made you as a kid love the game? Like, what was it that you say, okay, I love this game, I just want to play it? How was it? What was that spark?
Well, Marcio, actually, as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a professional athlete.
Great. Me too, but I don't have your skills, but me too.
So when I was really young, I loved baseball. Baseball was my first love, and then it changed over to basketball. I remember at one point I figured if I grew 3 inches a year till I was a senior in college, I was going to be 6'2". I'd be tall enough to play in the NBA. But then my junior year in high school, I went to a soccer camp at Rider University. And the head counselor was Manfred Shellshite, and his assistant head coach was Charles Ping Pong Ferruto. Well, Manfred Shellshite, he may be the most influential soccer coach in this country because he spawned off of him coaches like Glenn Meyernick, Bob Bradley, Bruce Arena, all these guys. So after spending a week with Manfred, it was like the light bulb went on, like what soccer was all about. It was like until then, I didn't have a clue. Manfred would get in front of the campers every morning, and he would demonstrate a different skill. And it was like amazing to me. And back then, Marcio, we didn't get to see soccer like the young kids now. They can see the best players in the world. That was actually the first time they showed one night at the camp. They showed the 1970, and this was like in 73, the 1970 Italy Brazil World Cup final. Yeah, that was a spectacular team. And so Marcio, that for me it was like the light bulb went on.
Yeah.
And then this Charles Ping Pong Ferruto, he was a local legend in the Trenton area, and he became my mentor. And literally from the summer going into my senior year through my 4 years in college, Monday through Friday, every day we would go train from about 9:30 to 3:30, every Monday through Friday, every day. And or nowadays no one will do anything without getting paid. His pay was my mother made breakfast for us before he picked me up. That was and he had a brilliant soccer mind. So that's how I fell in love with the game. And then my senior year in high school, I had hurt my leg, and then I was playing in the state championship game. I kind of got hurt. I finished the game, and later that night I had to go to the hospital. I ended up I had severely stretched my ligaments, and I was out for like 3-4 months. So my first game back for junior ball, Timo Liakowski, who was back then probably considered the best college soccer mind in the country, he was the coach at Hartwick College, which was then a premier college program. He was coming to Trenton to see one of my teammates. So it was my first game back after like 5 months. And then I went up to visit the school, and he basically told me, I said, I want to go to Hartwick. He says, you're not good enough to play here. He said, you should go anywhere else. Not exactly what I wanted to hear. But in spite of that, I said, I decided I was going to Hartwick College anyway. And he gratuitously invited me to preseason camp. And the preseason, and he didn't give me the time of day. He had all these New Jersey, these high school All-Americans, and Glenn Meyernick, who came from a junior college, like terrific players. I was like almost like the ball boy. The end of the preseason, he goes and meets with every player. He basically tells me, I don't see you ever playing on the varsity. And like my heart sank. But then he said, well, I'll give you a choice. You can stay on the varsity, you're never going to play, or you can go to the junior varsity and be one of the better players on a team. I didn't hesitate. I said, I'll stay on the varsity. So throughout preseason, I would always get in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the preseason game. So our first regular season game was against Montclair. Montclair's in New Jersey, would be the only game my parents would get to see. So I was really excited. I'd been preseason, going away to school, going to try out for a top, 10 program with a coach that doesn't think you can play, a little nerve-wracking. So we get to the game. We're up 1-0. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to get in, in the second half. There's 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left. Whistle blows. I'm the only player on the team not to get in the game. It was so humiliating. I went and saw my parents. I, fought off the tears, hugged my mom, kissed her, hugged my dad, went back on the bus, back of the bus. My eyes were filled with tears, like the whole ride back. And what'll sum up what I became that night, or back then, the drinking age was 18 years old. And Oneonta had like 50 bars. It was a college town, Oneonta State and Hartwick. And, everybody was going to go out and celebrate. I told Mooch Meyernick, my friend, teammate, no, I'm not going to go. I have something to do. I got my soccer ball. I went down to this park and I trained till like 12 o'clock at night under the lights. So it became like my mantra, like doing secret training. So the second game, we go to play Penn State, and Penn State had a bunch of players that I was familiar with because we played against them in local leagues. A couple were the Barr brothers, who ended up being NFL kickers. And this one player, Richie Reese, I had played against them in the summer league. Well, we go to play Penn State, and they absolutely destroy us. They're up 5-1, and this Richie Reese, who I'd played against, he was just cutting us up. So with like 9 minutes left to go in the game, I get in the game, and I actually, on my first touch, almost scored a goal. We end up losing 5-1, and that Monday, one of the starting midfielders quits the team. So I go tell Timo, and this Glenn Mooch-Martin says, this is your opportunity. There's an opening in the midfield. I go tell Timo I'd like to speak to him. He says, okay. So I go take my shower. My heart is pounding. I'm not sure what I'm going to say. I have a coach. He's one of the best coaches in the country. We just got beat 5-1, and he doesn't think I can play anyway. So I went in there. He said, sit down across from Timo. He says, what did you want to talk about? I said, well, actually, Timo, I said, I should be playing. I said, I should be starting. And he had this like shock on his face. It was like silence. It seemed like forever. It was probably like 6-7 seconds. He said, well, why would you say that? And I said, well, we have a lot of players who play scared on this team. They're timid, because we had some of the freshman players. He just handed them starting jobs, and going from high school to college, it's physical. They were scared out there. And I said, and also Richie Reese, the one player from Penn State, I said, I played against him in the summer twice, and I said, I put him in my back pocket. So Timo hesitates. He says, well, we're going to play UConn, University of Connecticut, on Wednesday. And Timmy Hunter's, they're like all-American midfield candidate. He says, you think you can mark him? And I didn't hesitate. I said, well, I've never seen him play before, but I'm sure I can. And that's how I got in the team, started in the team. And then, like I said, I would train, like I said, in the summers, I would train those like 9:30, 10 o'clock to 3:30. And then I'd go home, and we had a junior high. We used to go play pickup soccer. There could be like 20 guys there, go back till 6 till 8:30 or whenever it got dark. And when I was in school, I would try to train in off season 2 hours every day minimum in the racquetball courts by myself, because the racquetball courts are a wonderful place to train. You don't chase the ball, you touch it 1,000 times. So that's how I kind of worked my way up. My freshman year, I played in the midfield, a little bit left back, but Timo at the end of my freshman year actually said, if you're going to be in the starting 11, this was after I was in the starting 11 and we got to the Final Four. He said, you probably have to win a left back position. So once again, he kind of pushed me back, like he just still didn't believe in me. And when my sophomore year came, I became the left back. I was playing really good, but until the end of the year, when we had some injuries, he finally gave me a shot at a midfield. He made this big switch. He put Glenn Muchmarnik, who was probably the best player in the country, as sweeper. I went to central midfield, and then kind of everything clicked thereafter.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, hearing your story, I mean, I have two small boys, I mean, 13 and 10. And what I try to teach them is, no matter how good you are, I mean, there's a lot of training, a lot of effort, like not every coach will see what you got. You got to show them. So your story just is amazing inspiration for all of us. So thank you for sharing that. Todd, I have one more question before you.
Good.
As a kid growing up in Brazil, I was able to see these amazing players from Brazil playing in the National League, but also we were able to see a lot of the European leagues. So, in the 80s, the Brazilian TV networks, it would broadcast a lot of the Italian games, sometimes the German games, mostly Italian, because the Italian league back in the 80s was what it is today, the Premier League. So all the good players were there. So do you remember, like, when you start kind of playing in the college level and professional level? I know you played against amazing players as well, but who are the players that you were looking back in the 70s? Oh my gosh, I want to be like this guy, or look at this guy. I want to do something like similar.
You know what, Marcio? Like I said, when in college, I don't know if it was like my junior year or something, they came out with this show called Soccer Made in Germany. They would show highlights of the Bundesliga. It was West Germany then, of course. And that was like the first time we got to see on like a weekly basis the top players, like you talk about. Like the Italian league was where the best foreign players went. Like, England, and you could only have 2 foreign players playing at a time, etc. So, but I was fortunate. Most of the players, I got to play against George Best. I got to play against Teofilo Cubillas, who I think in the 70 World Cup was the second best player in the World Cup, right? Gerd Muller. For me, though, Franz Beckenbauer, but Johan Cruyff, when he came over here, he was still, and to this day, I can remember the situation. It was at RFK Stadium, and for some reason, I ended up out wide, and he had the ball, and they were in their attacking third. He was about 35 yards out. And I can remember thinking, me and Johan Cruyff, I said, you know what? I'm just going to push him out wide, let him serve the ball in. That's the best I could do. You know what, Marcio? He did this. He exploded. It was like I was in quicksand. And but that whole game, he was just amazing. He was just, I always think of him like, people don't mention him as one of the, like in the Pelé or Ronaldo, Messi, but to me, and then what he did as far as contributing, like coaching, like what Barcelona became in Pep.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to make a point. Like I was born in 76, so I didn't watch much of Johan Cruyff as a player, but I could see him as a coach in Barcelona, especially when he was able to coach Ronaldinho, which for me, my those 2 years of Ronaldinho in Barcelona, he was amazing. Unfortunately, he wanted to do something else, party, clubbing, whatever. But I mean, that Barcelona under Cruyff as a coach, that was a pretty amazing team. So I was not fortunate to see him as a player, but as a coach, he was amazing. Amazing.
I remember the 74 World Cup because that was the first World Cup actually we could see. We'd have to go pay-per-view to go to like the closed circuit. But I remember him against Argentina, Marcio. He was running with the ball like he a lot of it. Messi played like him, where when they're at top speed, every stride. Now Messi would be the left foot, he would touch the ball, where Cruyff would be the right foot. So the ball's so close. The Argentinian players were literally just trying to like tackle him like around the waist to stop. It was unbelievable. And then he mentally, I think he was so far ahead of the game, which a lot of great players aren't great coaches. We know that. But he talked back then about the goalkeeper being the extra player when you have possession of the ball.
Exactly. I mean, I was, today talking to Todd about this. I mean, of course, I think guys like Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, they make a lot of money. There's it's a no new era of internet and all of that. But the amount of players that I saw, even from the 80s to the 90s, that either couldn't reach that level because they either went party clubbing and do something else, or they got injured. And I'm very, probably people are gonna put a lot of comments. I don't put Messi into my top 10 players. I don't put Messi into my top 10 players because guys like Beckenbauer, Cruyff, Rivellino, people don't know who it is. I mean, those guys, it's what they do. And remember, when you guys were professional in the 70s, when I started playing as a kid, the fields were completely different. Today's like a carpet. Have those nice cleats, the nice ball, nice field. I used to play in Brazil as a kid, barefoot in the dirt. There's no grass. Grass is only on the sidelines. And so that talent in the 70s playing today with the equipment and the fields, I don't know. I don't know if guys like Messi, of course, guys like Messi would be a good player, but I don't know if they will be in that level. And I always say, like, the rivalry between Brazil and Argentina is huge. But I say this, Maradona, in my opinion, is 1,000 times better player than Messi, in my humble opinion. What Maradona did going to a club like Napoli, there was nothing, and putting this club to become a European champions, you got to be way special to do that. So anyway, I have a tremendous amount of respect of the players from the 70s, the 80s that you guys, you play with it was roots, like, tough environment. So anyway.
It's like you said, that 70 team, and it's amazing how like Rivellino evolved from a left winger, right, to a midfield general. Like I got to at the Bicentennial Cup in '76. I have a friend who's a reporter, and he got me a press pass, and I got to stand next to the Brazilian bench when Italy played Brazil. I got a picture with Zico, and Rivellino was just spectacular. Zico, and at that time, it was the first time I saw Falcao, and I said, this guy, man, he's going to be a player. And I was just, maybe I was lucky because he was another one of them, like, unbelievable. And I think it's that 82 team was the most talented team never to win the World Cup.
Yes, and that was, I remember, I was 7 years old. Remember, my dad is still alive, a huge soccer fan. But anyway, that generation of players, it's just, you guys on the 70s, like, it's just amazing. I mean, I'm a huge fan, but I think if you guys could play, if you want to go back to your 25 years old, putting you today with your determination, with your work ethics, with the material, the equipment.
Oh,
I don't know. I think
Marshall, like I said, I didn't take up soccer like serious play. I was 16. Of course, then I trained, like 6-7 hours a day in the summer. But man, I always said, and if I got from a young age, loved the game and got to see the best players in the world, I said, I'd be able to make the ball sing. It would be nothing I couldn't do with the ball.
I agree. Yeah.
Billy, tell me, so I want to know a little bit, because you're from New Jersey, is that correct?
Yes.
And your mom and dad, I want, and then I want to move into your 1977 season, but your mom and dad, and then the Hamilton Sweet Shop. I'm just whatever you want to tell
Hamilton.
us about
Okay,
that.
so in 1940, my grandfather, my father's father, he bought the Hamilton Sweet Shop and then the two properties next to it. One was a lot of different things. It ended up being actually Michellery Cheesecakes, a business my brother started. Next to it was a liquor store. And then like 6 months later, for $8,000 in 1940, which was a lot of money back then.
Sure.
And 6 months later, my grandfather had a heart attack and passed away in his sleep. So my father, he couldn't go to college. So him and my uncle basically took over, was 19, 20 years old. They leased it out for like 2 years during World War II. But all my brothers, my two brothers, and on my uncle's side, my cousins, that was like our first job. We go to the sweet shop, and it was across from the high school. and a hospital. And at that time, the hospital didn't even have a cafeteria. So as a little kid, I can just remember it was always so busy. And they kind of nicknamed my dad the bouncer because if the kids were acting up, my dad was the one who threw them out. But a lot of fond memories and nice meals there.
Sure. I'm assuming, obviously, how proud they were of you, of what you've done, but then the 77 season.
You know what, Todd? My father's the greatest influence on my life by far. I feel so, fortunate. And yes, he was very proud of me. A couple things. One, I remember when I started getting a lot of, say, more recognition that I was a good soccer player. My father told my mother, he said, if people want to talk about Billy, that's fine, but we never talk about Billy. Because, we had some people that we were friendly with. They always would brag about their children and then, things don't turn out, or just, it's not I don't think it's a good trait. But the one thing, when we won the national championship, and then also when I did receive the Player of the Year award, the Trentonian was the big main newspaper, and my father, they sold newspapers at the luncheon end, and I was the whole back page of the newspaper. So I knew that day he was going to be very proud, showing it to the customers.
How did they tell you guys in 1977? How did you find out of being the Player of the Year?
I think, did they call me? We went to the Senior Bowl, and Art Napolitano, my teammate for 4 years, and he's from the Trenton area. We went, and I think I think it was the night before. George O'Gorman, the reporter, called me to tell me you won the award, and wanted some comments because it was going to be in the paper the next day. I think that's how I got it. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Well, you know what, Todd? I'm very proud. Obviously, to be considered the best in the country at something, I'm extremely proud of. And I always say this: it pales in comparison to winning the national championship.
Sure.
My
okay.
No comparison.
How was that? Well, how that season?
It was, you know what, Todd? Like I said, so my freshman year, we really started off like terrible. Like I told you at the beginning, like this is Hartwick, this powerhouse. After we beat Montclair, we get beat 5-1 by Penn State, and then UConn 3-0. This is unheard of, like at Hartwick. So the Timo, he reconfigured stuff. He actually went, and this is bizarre. We almost played with two right wingers. And we'll call it a center forward, a central attacking player. And it was very hard. I've never seen it before, ever again. But it was hard for teams to understand how to defend. Like, okay, now did they take one of their center backs out? And if they moved the right back over to the left side, and then it left a lot of space for the left midfield or left back to attack. It was crazy. We fought and we scraped, and we ended up playing UConn in the regional finals to go to the Final Four. The team that beat us 3-0, we beat them 2-0. So that team really was scrappy. Howard was a bunch of like guys from Ireland and Africa, the Caribbean and Africa. Very skillful, terrific team. They ended up we lost 2-1, and I thought it was ironic that we had to reconfigure against them, and we did like a 4-2-4, and it was me and Glenn Meyernick, against Ian Bain and this other player, and I kind of realized I came a long way from high school to be playing, because to me, him and Farouk Qureshi were like, say that they should have been like co-player of the year. And then our sophomore year, we kind of, I want to say struggled. We just didn't play good. And Mooch left the team for a while to go to the Pan Am games and Olympic qualifying games. Like I said, for whatever reason, Timo still, he handed his freshman recruits into the midfield, and I was the left back. Like I said, I was playing really good. I mean, 2 weekends in a row, I got the game-winning goal as a left back. And the last regular season game, it was at Penn State. It was kind of a meaningless game because we already qualified for the tournament, and we were seated where we were. And some players were injured and some had finals. And Timo put me in the central midfield position. And like we talk about the fields, or Marcio commented, Penn State's got this beautiful big grass field. And it's kind of, when you get on that kind of field, you feel like no one can take the ball from you. And I played central midfield, and Mooch went back to sweeper, and we just clicked. We just started. We could put 15, 20 passes together, and we ended up going to Cornell, who beat us on their turf in earlier in the year 3-0 in the New York final. We ended up losing 2-1, a game we totally dominated, and our goalkeeper slipped on a back pass and the ball went in. But that from that point on, the team, we were special. We went to the Dallas and played this Mr. Pibb tournament in the spring. And in 3 consecutive days, we beat SIU, who was a powerhouse, 4-1. Quincy was like an NAI powerhouse, but they were as good as any Division I teams. We beat them 3-0. And then Clemson, who had this unbelievable rivalry, they were all like African players are from Guyana, and we'd have nasty games with them, and we beat them 3-2. We just became very successful. So we lost then the last 2, we lost at Franklin Field, which is like Skelly Stadium.
Yeah.
Tight, really crowned, old. So you can't play through balls. You just can't pace it properly because the ball just runs away. And then if it's on a diagonal pass, the crown just pushes it out of bounds. And it was like the worst surface for us. But Indiana, that's what they played on. They were all big, athletic. So we lost in the semifinals. And then the last year, University of San Francisco, who won that year, and they were a terrific team. And they had, back then college soccer didn't have an age limit. They have some different rules now.
Okay.
So they had like Tony Igwe and Andy Atuebu. They were like 28, 29 years old. They played for like the Nigerian national team. And then they had some older Norwegian guys. And we played them at Berkeley, California. It was like a home game for them in the finals. We played Brown in the semis, and they got up 1-0. And I don't know why they were cursing and saying all this stuff. And we hadn't played them, any of us, in 4 years against them. And we, this John Young Scottish player hit like a 25-yard laser in the corner, make it 1-1. And then the beginning of the second half, they tried to play an offside trap, and I ran from the midfield. The ball was played over the top. The keeper came out. I just lobbed it over his head in, and that was it. We beat them 4-1. Then San Francisco, like I said, they had won 2 times. They were twice in a row. They won the national championship. We beat them 2-1. It was a very nice feeling.
Pretty special, huh? That is
Yes.
awesome. That's great. And then, so in 1978, you get drafted by the Roughnecks in the NASL.
Yeah, they Noel Lemon, who was very good to me. He really wanted me, and they did this. It was the Hawaii team came to Tulsa.
Right.
They really didn't want the players, but for PR purposes, they traded the rights of 8 players so they could select me the 3rd pick because they knew the first 2 picks who the other teams were going to take. Now, having said that, Todd, I love Tulsa. I love Tulsa.
Sure.
I love the people. I think are very nice people. Little, friendlier than I love New Jersey, but they're a little friendlier.
Sure.
But for me, it was a poor decision for 2 reasons. One, the field was the worst field for someone like me to play on. It was so tight and narrow, and they had that crown. And 2, maybe even more importantly, that the team was predominantly English. And back then, like now, England plays better soccer, but back then it was, tons of long ball to the target, and you get bypass, and I needed the ball at my feet, and so it was a really poor decision on my, looking back on my part. But
how was it different to play? Because when I was growing up as a kid, I didn't realize that field was smaller. Then I watched TV and see the Cosmos had a huge field. How different tactically or strategized what did you have to do differently?
Well, it just was okay. So what? So when we played the Diplomats, do you remember Iraj Donifard?
Oh yeah.
So we're playing the Diplomats, and Iraj is marking Cruyff. Now remember, now it's different. Me marking Cruyff in RFK Stadium, or him in a central position in Skelly Stadium because it's so tight. There's no space, and the whole game, Iraj was kicking him every time he touched the ball. Late in the game, Cruyff got the ball. He pushed it a little too far ahead of him, I think intentionally, and he went over the top on a tackle and almost broke Iraj's leg.
Okay, yeah.
But you know what? It's not like even the Cosmos. Remember the one year in the playoffs we beat them.
Mm-hmm.
It just time space equals time and time equals space, and it's just so hard to play on that field if teams are high pressuring you. It's very difficult. And like I said, for me, it was probably the last place I should have been. I should have been on a big grass field somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you, as a kid, so I started watching and I told you this, earlier, but my dad was an usher for the games, so I would go to a lot of the games. Majority of them. The first year the Roughnecks were there, I went to several of the games. The first one I went to, there was 2 games in a row. We beat it's either Chicago Sting and Colorado Caribous or vice versa. We beat them both 4-1. I remember that. And I thought, oh man, it was Colorado first. Cause then we went to Chicago, or then we beat Chicago 4-1. Then a couple days later played them in Chicago and got beat 5-2. But I just remember, this is great scoring and all that. I was number 7, the first team I played for. And I thought of, okay, I'm Jimmy Redfern. The next year, my across the street neighbor was my coach. His name's David Roof. And he goes, all right, you're going to be number 10. Yeah, that's Pele's number. I go, Pele? I'm going to be Billy Gazonas. I'm Billy Gazonas. That's who I am. Because I didn't understand at the time, but,
right.
but I was like,
it was synonymous with 10.
And our team name was the Disney Roughnecks. So I was like, I'm Billy Gazonas. That's who I am. So it was pretty cool to me just to see that. But the Roughnecks brought a big, a following to Tulsa, and it was just really fun to watch. I know there'll be a ton of my friends that grew up Roughneck fans that'll watch this. Any stories you've got, I mean, that you can tell, or anything like just from it? I mean, like, had you ever been to Tulsa before? Or was that your first time? Yeah.
No,
yeah.
That was the first time.
Yeah.
You know what? We like, you mentioned like Billy Caskey and Victor Martin. These guys are, they're the salt of the earth. It's hard not to love these guys for so many reasons, besides being really good players. I got along really good with them. They were younger.
Yeah.
Charlie Mitchell kind of took me under his wing.
Okay.
About the ropes and professional soccer and all that. He looked after me. One day, here's a story we can have. Remember the second year they brought in a Yugoslavian, when Yugoslavia was still a country, a contingent of Yugoslavian players. And we ended up having a big fight between some of the Yugoslavian players and some of the British players.
Okay. Wow.
So in practice, it was pretty intense.
Wow.
The team, the coaches have different personalities. Like when I was drafted there, I was supposed to go to Manchester United after the season and train with whoever maybe the reserves or one of those, not the first team. And then Bill Folks got fired mid-season. I wasn't happy with him, and I don't want to disparage anyone. I thought the training sessions with him left something to be desired. Now, he was one of the Busby Babes, one of the few people that survived the plane crash. Then Alex Katork took over. But coaches, they have the players that they like a certain style or whatever. So then Alan Hinton came in. Yeah. And he brought in his the Derby County guys that had a lot of success with Brian Clough. And there was always going to be a divide, because as an American, and not just me or the Tulsa Roughneck Americans, we were kind of discriminated against in our own country. Mm-hmm. So because they said, we can you only have to play 2 North Americans, it actually worked against us. So that would be it. And it would typically be, it would either be a goalkeeper, or for sure one of the 2 was going to be a defender. That's just the way it was. And, for a little bit, they put Billy Sauter up front in attacking position, but a lot of times, in the skill positions, they weren't going to play you. And even when I went to Calgary, Al Miller, who's an American, he was at Dallas. He believed midfield had to be the strongest position, area of the team. And we had in the midfield, Jurgen Roybal, who played for Bayern Munich. We had Helmut Kremers, who was with, I think, FC Cologne and played the national team. And then we had was it Hector Molina? He played with Boca Juniors. So it was hard to get in the team, and they wanted me to play like an outside back, which I wasn't comfortable with. But there was a lot of it was very hard being an American, because they looked down on you, and the coach was English. He was going to favor his guy. So if we were equal, or even I was a little better, he's still going to play the guy he brought in, because he recruited him. Sure. So they've come a long way, and I know you want to bring up, Marcio, at a certain point, our national team, and that's why I'll wait for those questions.
Yeah, no, because like, I feel that, to be honest, when I came the first time to the US to study, like I did travel before with my family, Disney, whatever. But when I moved here, I was 14, 15-ish years old, freshman at high school. And then I remember like walking to the soccer field, me, the Brazilian guy, everybody like, okay, this guy's from Brazil. He sure is gonna make the varsity. And I was not, I didn't understand that, because I always have to fight to make the team back in my hood in Brazil. So no, yeah, no, I'm not in team. I gotta practice. I gotta train. I gotta do that. But in the end, even the American coach did exactly what you did. I did have some American friends, pretty talented. I play midfield just like you, but and then he put all the Latino kids to play, and I say, okay, but those guys are not that good as that guy. And then the goalie was American, the whole defensive team was American, but I was like, coach, like put John, whatever, like this. No. You guys are way better than that. Like, why? I didn't understand that. So I want to pick some questions on that.
Okay.
So for me, when I see the soccer in the US, and remember, I have two boys playing soccer, okay, but in Brazil, soccer, for most of the kids, there are low-income kids. Soccer is their way out, okay? Just like football and basketball here in the US. It's their way out,
yes.
Right? And every park that I go, everything that I go, as a kid, 2 flip-flops becomes a goal. You play barefoot, voila, you have a pickup game, okay? So I still think that until the US here, we don't plant this mindset that soccer is fun, it's easy, it's cheap, you play anywhere. Because right now, to play soccer here in the club level, I gotta pay $100, $200 a month for each kid, plus travel, plus uniform. Like, it's not affordable. It's not an affordable sport. So I from your mindset, from your perspective, being a professional athlete, college athlete, like, what do you think is going to take for us here in the US to see that happening? And then we can call ourselves, we are a soccer powerhouse, just like, because the money is here, we can buy talent, as the US tried to do that in the 70s, but I don't think that's a good strategy. You see how English is playing out. The Premier League is great. The English team's not going to go anywhere. And I'm sorry if people want to lash me out, but it's not going to go anywhere. So what do you think is going to take, or what do you think we need to do as a country to turn the US into a soccer powerhouse?
Well, Marcio, I think you hit the nail on the head, because like my friend Glenn Muchmarnik, who passed away, a few of the coaches in the Trenton area, they organized like for inner city, to get the inner city kids to play, because we don't have to be here and debate like who are the best athletes, or in general, if we're going to stereotype and all that. And they started, then the one guy who ran, he passed away that was running it, and then so they're trying to revive it, but it is a big concern. And even with the national team, you don't see a lot of Latinos on the team right now, right? Yeah. So the question, right, is how do we engage these young kids in the inner city, instead of going to the basketball court, to have a little soccer ball amongst 3 or 4 of them and go play a small-sided game? And I'm not sure the answer to that.
Because like even here, we live in a nice suburban area, and soccer is not even part of the middle school program. So I'm saying, like, my kids go to public school, my kids go private. So even into the public school system, in some states, some counties, soccer is not part of the program. So I mean, that would be for me something to, okay, let's just make the kids feel and touch soccer. Maybe they can feel good about it. But if it's not even part of the public school system, like, how are we going to do that? I don't know.
The other thing, Marcio, I think how they grow up, they play it differently. Like, so when I was like, say 16, 17, which is kind of older now as far as, but when I played with the men, when I played up with the men's team, say, we would go to tournaments, play in North Jersey. We were the only American team there. We'd be playing against, some 30-year-old Ecuadorian guy that's built like a fire hydrant. And if I nutmeg him, I know he's going to try to break my leg. But I'm saying we became more soccer savvy. versus just
Yes.
playing, like you say, against like all
Yes.
this pay for play, like, you know, the Oklahoma City teams and the Tulsa teams, they travel to Chicago and then they're still playing each other instead of playing different ethnic groups and
Exactly.
learning
Exactly.
from them.
Exactly.
Sure.
I 100% agree with that. I grew up playing my pickup games, rich and poor, black, white, yellow, fat, short, tall, fast, slow, older. Like I used to play when I was 14 with older people, like 35. And, you know, they're not going to say, hey, you're nice. They're going to, boom, they're going to, you know, elbow me. And you have to develop that. So what I'm trying to do with my kids is every other Saturday, I say, kids, call all your friends. They play against me. And guess what? I'm elbowing them. I'm not going to hurt them, but I say, guys, you know, that's it. Because, you know, everyone now, it's so like, oh my gosh, the word is so politically correct that you can, no, dude, soccer is a contact sport.
Yep.
You gotta, I'm not saying you gotta be violent, but you gotta understand that you're allowed to use your body, you're allowed to do some pushing, and that's, you know, in the rules of the game, but they don't want to do that. And also my other question for you is this. I've seen, and again, I love England. I work for a British company. I went to England many times. I love great friends. But as you said, when you were describing the British soccer, like the transition between defense and offense, all long balls. So guys like you that want to touch the ball. So here, what I'm seeing in the US, I don't know, maybe because of the language, they're bringing a bunch of British coaches for the youth generation. And then when I see the tryouts, what I see, like and then my wife's like, you're not gonna say anything, stay here, because I can't, like, dudes, like you got a guy that just because he's a little bit taller, just because he's a little bit faster, and you know, kids in that age, they, you know, has no skills. They don't know how to, if you do like a long shot, they can't control the ball, but just because they're fast, they're always playing those long shots. Why? Because they want the club to win tournaments, so then they attract more kids, and more kids play, and that's all. But
you know, Marcio, it's a problem, and it's amazing to me. In spite of that, we're producing more and more good players because it's all about the money, and they think it's like it would be absurd to say, well, every American, if they went to Holland, they could be a great baseball coach because they come from America. It's the same like the English. They have the accent, and people get enamored with it, like it means that they understand. And considering England was, it's funny because when we went on tour with Tulsa, which was then called the first division, that was when they first started having some black players in the playing. They didn't have any. And at that time I said, well, you know what, England, and I hate the way the English style of play, right? So I thought, well, you know, they're gonna be a world power. But you know what, Marcio? It's taken what? That was 50 years ago almost, that they're now, of course, they have some very good black players in the first team, but they tend to revert back, right, when it comes to crunch time in those important games.
Exactly. Like, still, like, look, I've always watched, okay, England, like, I'm always about facts. How many World Cup titles? One.
And because they hosted.
And it was questionable at home. At home. Okay. Mm-hmm. After that, nothing happens. I don't see any English player today, even today, that would say, okay, this guy, oh my gosh, I just want to watch that. I want to watch the Premier League because of all the other players, because they have the money, and then they put together a great team. Of course you want to see, but there's never, and I grew up having international idols. So Cruyff was one of them. In my age, like, I like Maldini's. Oh my gosh. Even the dad and the son, Baresi, you know, guys like
Baresi was nasty, right? Well, if you're the Italian captain, you have to be nasty.
Nasty.
Right?
That's even the Dutch guys like Van Basten, Gullit, and you know, like, those were players like, oh my gosh, those guys I never had anyone from England that said, this guy is my idol. No, yeah. I can have a guy like from Cameroon, from Egypt, Salah. I pick any country. I never had one guy from England that I said, okay, maybe a guy that was fun to watch was Paul Gascoigne just because he was
Yeah,
crazy.
that's what I
He
was
was
going to.
far from being a great
Technically,
soccer player.
yeah, he
So-
wasn't.
So what I don't get as a soccer fan and a guy who's still playing, okay, if I want to build, if I have a company right now, let's say I'm doing a business, where are the best engineers? Or let's say they are in South Africa. Okay, I'm going to go there. But now, just because of the language, I'm recruiting English. And again, just to be fair, my little kid had an English coach, amazing guy, like very unique, but he was a something outside of the English box.
Right.
Why we're not bringing coaches from other countries that are truly, because I don't see, I have a hard time understanding what is the American soccer way of playing. So let's say you perfectly describe the British. Then you go to Brazil. It's about controlling the ball, controlling the game, skilling. Okay, great. And then my question to all of this is, what's the American style, and what do you think we need to do to either improve that style or to change that style?
You know what, Marcio? Like you look like geographically speaking, sometimes the weather conditions can dictate how we play, right? So in England, not to give them a pass, but a lot of times it's cold, it's wet, windy. It's not the same like when you grow up and you're playing like in the favelas, it's warm and it's on cement, you're stepping on the ball and pulling it back and all that. I don't know if we have distinct areas, right? So if you grew up in Minnesota for 6 months, 7 months out of the year, it's going to be cold. If you're playing outdoor soccer, it's hard in February. Then you got Southern California. I would think we're gonna gravitate to a more of the skillful, because it seems some of the younger national teams have produced some very good players. And my one friend who watches everything, he's retired, he just constantly watches. He said if that recent was at the U17 World Cup, he said if you didn't know the teams and it was Brazil playing USA, technically just looking, you wouldn't have known the difference, which to me is a great thing.
Yeah,
it's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So, but how we end up playing, it's like a style, like I read something recently and it was interesting, like how Germany, they haven't had a lot of success.
Yes.
We know besides the last 2 World Cups, but someone blamed Pep Guardiola. This is just what I'm telling. I'm not agreeing with this, because when they went to Bayern Munich, they changed their style of play to much more possession.
Yep.
And now it just threw them off. Now I don't know if the Germans, because they're more interracial now, and sometimes say the Turkish players or the African descent players that are German citizens, they play a little differently. Where 20 years ago, the Germans, they all played the same way. They all had that focus, that they had that will to win. Even when they didn't have good national teams, they were very difficult to beat. So I don't know where that comes, because like I said, Germany's changed their style. What, the last 2 World Cups, they haven't gotten to the second round.
Yeah, but even the same thing is happening in Brazil. I have a little crazy theory. It's you quote one of the biggest, probably the biggest, in my opinion, talent-wise from position to position in Brazil, 1982. I think there are more talent than this, even than the 1970. In terms of every position was amazing, okay, but we didn't have winning. If you go back and see the history of World Cups, Brazil, 82, 86, 90, for me, it's just a declining.
Boy.
And my theory is this: back in the 80s and the 90s, the European leagues, you couldn't have more than 3 foreigners playing for them. Okay. Now we don't. I think they don't have any limits. Okay. So here's the thing: I'm seeing over and over, and one of my best friends, my childhood friend, he's a player agent, like a soccer player agent. He works for the big players. He's doing extremely well. So and he's the one that pointed it out. Say, Marcio, look, now people are coming here in Brazil and they're signing kids when they're 12, 13. So they're not ready yet. So you're pulling a kid that it's, I would say, 5 to 6 years to become fully a player, and you insert them into a European system, which is position and running. Because I was mentioned to Todd before, one of the few things that people don't know about the Brazilian style is the futsal. It's
Yep.
that ability to play in the little camps, quick
Yep.
thinking, touches, boom, 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 boom. And then when you take a kid out of this environment,
Especially at that age group, like 12 to 16.
exactly, and then you put them into a position, whatever, you're just changing them. So, a guy that could be, so I right now, when I look into the Brazilian team, I said, okay, when I grew up, every single man player in the Brazilian team was either the best or the second best in the league or in their team. Right now, they're not.
No.
They're not. So that's when I talk about system, like we're killing the Brazilian way of playing because we're taking the young talent too young and we're putting them into a system which is not natural for us. So then the analogy that I'm trying to make is, okay, what can we do in the US to kind of bypass that? Because different from, soccer is different from football and college nowadays, not in your age, but nowadays,
Yes.
college soccer doesn't drive as many audience, as many monies and all that. And, if the MLS becomes the Premier League, people are going to do the same. The Miami is going to go to Brazil and going to sign up for a kid for 14 years old and bring here and do that. So I'm very curious to see how the MLS will play that game. They're going to try to become the new Premier League, but I'm still waiting to see what can we do as a country to make soccer more popular. And I'm dying to see someone like Messi or Neymar or Pelé born in the US, because I think that is going to change the game.
You know what, Marcio? It's interesting. Just because our system is almost like you say a pay for play, we miss out on so many players who maybe could be special, and like you said, the coaches, the trainers, it's all about winning. It's really not developing the player, because if they win, they get more players. The club gets more money. It's capitalism, at its best. So, and unfortunately, I don't think there's enough money. Like we say, we get some, this organization in Trenton, they get a little money to go after some of the kids. But, could you imagine if you could do it in New York City or in Los Angeles with the Latinos and really develop them? But the other side is the kids play so many games instead of, like, for me, I'd rather go train in a racquetball court for 2 hours and go play a game. I'm going to get 30 touches in the game. I'm going to get 1,000 touches in the racquetball court.
Bill, I don't know how, but some way, somehow, I'm going to try to get you to Oklahoma to give you a seminar and talk with the coaches, just what you said. I couldn't give 2 cents about having my son playing every other weekend. I would rather have him playing small field, getting developed. Like the other day, and my son, they hate me when I go talk to their friends, because, okay, let me see how we control the ball. And then I throw a ball in the air. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to use your chest or your basic stuff, controlling the ball, handling the ball, stuff that happens on the field. I don't see the coach. I remember I used to have a coach that he was the biggest influence in my life. We would train three times a week, and then Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday, and then Saturday we game all over the neighborhood. Mondays and Wednesdays was all about skill,
technique,
touching the ball. You throw the ball and you have to control. You pass the ball. It was boring, of course, but you want to play. And if we did well on the 2 days, then on Friday, maybe we would have a scrimmage. Maybe we would have a scrimmage. And that was oh my gosh, we're going to have a scrimmage today. But for years, from 7-year-old to 14, for 7 years, us training basic stuff. And then when my kids say, hey, Dad, how can I dribble the ball like that? Yeah, because I had to train like that when I was your age, and you guys are here playing video games. No, go outside the backyard, dribble the ball by yourself. And that's the kind of why. And then they got very mad. Oh, we lost the tournament. And then I go to them and say, dudes, look, I'm going to be straight honest with you. The odds that you're going to be a professional soccer player, it's 0.0000001. If you want to become 0.001 to 1%, You got to get your ass out there and just train as hard as you can. And you know, that tournament, I know for you, it counts, but it's not making you a better soccer player. Let me it's not. So hearing you, a professional athlete and a Hall of Famer, and saying that, oh my gosh, I wish every single coach in the US could listen to the podcast and let's say, I would trade any game for 2 hours in a racquetball war, because that's what we need.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
It's my youngest daughter is not that young, that she's 26. She's in medical school. She was a very gifted soccer player. She hated it. She wasn't the greatest athlete. She wasn't the kid that you say had the blinding speed, but she literally would do things with the ball that she wouldn't even know she did. Like, I mean, really special things. Her coach at prep school was this Jennifer Grubb, she played on the women's national team 7 times, was a 4-time first team All-American in college. And she said to Colette, would say, if your daughter wants to commit to soccer, I'll call any coach in the country for her. That's how good she was. But the point I'm going to make is her club team was a really good team. And one weekend they were going to a tournament. I'm trying to remember where they were going to end up spending, like, it was going to come out between, it was Ohio. I think they were going to go one city in Ohio, then another. So they were going to spend, I figured it out, it was maybe something like 14 hours in the bus, and they were going to play 2 games. And I was like, why? You're better off staying home and practicing for 4 or 5 hours. You're going to have more touches than you're going to sit in the bus. It's just so backwards how to develop players.
Well, I close my case with that, Todd, because Bill,
sure,
all respect, I am with you. I think the mindset needs to change. And, you know, that thing of, I mean, of course, it's nice as a kid. You know, I wish it could have as many tournaments as my kids have. Of course, no, it's good to go out and to compete, but at the same time, I think they over exaggerate in the number of tournaments, number of whatever, and they underestimate the value of developing a player. Because developing a player, as you said, you start this interview saying, "Hey, I had to overcome every single barrier. I had to train more than anyone." And I don't think here, at least on this club system that you pay to play, we are developing that mindset. And that mindset is going to carry you for life. Like, even if the one of it, I mean, 99.9% of them, they're not going to become a player, but I work hard in my life to be able to provide to my family, because I was taught as a kid that I got to work hard to get even a place in the bench. Okay. Right. And here, the system that, oh, no, everybody's going to play. No. Soccer's about meritocracy, my friend. Just because you're on the team, that doesn't mean that you're going to come out of the bench and play. When I was 10, 11, I made the team, but for 2 years, I was sitting on the bench watching the guys play, and I wasn't having 1 minute. And that made me what? Either I would quit, or I would go hard and train harder. So I just don't think that the system is actually helping from a human being development, because you're teaching that no matter what, just because you're there, you're going to get your 15, 20 minutes. No. It's meritocracy. So that's
the old, like, every kid gets a trophy. It drives me wild. It's like, no, you only get a trophy if you win the championship, or you get the MVP. That's it. Right. It's like,
yeah. So I think we are creating a system for soccer in the US. If you don't change that system, it's not going to help us become a soccer power house.
But you know what, Marcio? In spite of this, what we're talking about, and we know we're 100% right, because there's sheer numbers we have playing. Yeah. That we're gonna get.
Yeah. Of course, some way, somehow, in a 300 million country, people, you're gonna have. But I'm saying,
you're 100% right. Look at Uruguay. They have 3 million people. We have more players under 12 years old than they have citizens, and they produce 2 or 3 special players every decade.
Yeah. Exactly. The best player of my team, by the way, as we were talking, I have to show you this, because of course this is the new jersey of Flamengo. This is the new one. This is for my kid, Gigi, number 4. And this is the old replica of Zico in the 80s that I have here.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
Number two. I have a picture with it's in the book.
Yeah.
I got a picture with Zico.
And this, I miss so much the 80s and the 90s because I think the players from Brazil, they don't understand what Pelé did. And when Pelé died, people say, "Oh, we lost." No, Brazil had an amazing loss. It said Brazil lost its biggest ambassador. Pelé was the biggest.
Okay.
Everywhere in the world you go, you see that jersey here.
You knew who it
number
was.
10, people know it because
Yep.
of that guy. And I wish now that I will become an American citizen, like I wish I can see our American Pele or Messi or whatever. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. You can tell, like, I want to see the US winning a World Cup. I want to see that. I want to be able to be alive and see that. Okay, we did it. We changed it. Something happened. Like, I just don't know sometimes what to do. Like, and I feel that I'm just a crazy dad here. Oh, this is the grumpy Brazilian guy. It's always complaining about our system. He thinks we are Brazil's the best. No. I don't think I'm better. I just don't think that you guys can do way much better than you're doing right now.
It's going to be difficult. If you look at the history of the World Cup, every World Cup winning team, they usually have one or two world-class players, and all their players that are playing, they play for top clubs, not in the top, they play. And if you look at us, okay, Pulisic, he's not in the first team, and he's actually struggled. I think he was better when he was 18 years old. Reina, whose talent as it can be, I don't know above the shoulders, but he's not in the first team for Dortmund. McKennie is in and out. We don't have 11 players that are playing on top clubs every week.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's Billy Gazonas up to now? What are you doing now?
Well, I'm considering writing another book, but I'm not sure because it's writing is hard for me.
Yeah.
I still work because I like to work. I'm waiting for my daughter to get out of medical school. I don't know if I want to move to. I might consider moving to Florida, but I have grandchildren all over the place. And my one daughter moved. They were all outside of Kansas City, and my one daughter with 4 grandchildren moved back to California. And I just don't see myself living in California.
Understood.
For reasons I don't even want to go into.
Oh, totally understand. Yeah, I've got your book, your first one. Great read. I'm on that chapter 8 right now. Got it last week, but it's really interesting, and I just love the story that I've gotten to read so far about the kind of the same things you guys are talking about, and like you talked about earlier, Billy, is working hard at it, and finally you got your chance and shot, and you were able to prove yourself, and that was awesome.
I've been wrestling for a while of writing a real small book on secret training, like the things I did, because there's certain things I did I think are very, like, I want to say unique. Like my mentor used to put me against the fence and just start hitting balls at me and slowly drilling balls at me. And so when you got in the game, it was like effortless to control the ball. Like, Marcio's showing when he throws the ball and the player's all rigid in that, and just try to just focus on a few aspects of technique and then just show examples. But the other thing I find interesting, several times I've come across some Kobe Bryant stuff, and he talked about how he trained, how he practiced, and like for me, like in the summer for 5 years actually, I literally would play almost 8 hours a day. So who has the advantage? Me playing 3 months in a row, 8 hours a day, or the guy that trained 1 hour a day?
Right.
For 5 days. It just, it's a numbers game. So I just don't know if young kids read now.
Yeah, that is true. But it's a great read. I encourage anyone and everyone to definitely pick up a copy. It took me, I think I ordered it and I got it the next day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I also have the same book. I added another title. I don't know if you could see it. Under my name. Where is it?
Yeah,
everything's the same except the title, because I had an incident with a big soccer club that they felt that the name was inappropriate.
I got you.
I love the name.
Thank you, Marcia. So this way, if people liked it, but they didn't want offensive, it's available.
Understood.
And in bulk sales or whatever.
Okay.
So.
Are you still close to the game now? I mean, do you follow? Yeah.
I watch. I don't coach. I get people come all the time. They want me to come out, but I don't really have the time. For me, this last World Cup was spectacular.
Yeah.
Just I just thought it was such a good World Cup. The and we do stupid things sometimes. So I had bought tickets for a Christmas Carol. So happened to be when I ordered them for my wife and my daughter on December 18th. The show's at 1 o'clock, and it's like in Princeton, so it's like 20-minute drive. So we're watching the game. We're up, Argentina's up 2-0. I'm going, we're going to be fine. We're going to leave like 12 o'clock and da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, the game from when Argentina scored that first goal, I thought from that point to the end of the game, it was spectacular. So we watched, like, we get to about the first 10 minutes of overtime and we have to leave. So we're going there, and my daughter says, well, let's just not talk to anybody. We're hoping in the theater, you don't hear people saying who won. And my phone was like blowing up with people sending me text, but it worked out because we didn't hear the score. We went back and we put the game back from the 2-1. And I just thought it was just just so exciting.
That's so awesome.
Well, not for me. Not for me. I like the Argentina. Not for me. I was cheering against all the way.
It's amazing, Marcio, how it's just like there's something missing. Like, look like Germany and Brazil, right? You got talking two of the 4 top world soccer countries ever, and Brazil just can't get over that hump.
It's gonna take another. To be honest, I'm not confident at all with this 2026 World Cup.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that because we won here in 1994, because it's gonna be U.S., Canada, and Mexico. I'm always superstitious about that. But I'm zero hopeful that Brazil is gonna, because of that. As you mentioned, every single team that wins a World Cup, it has 2-3 players being the main player of a league or the main player of a team. We don't have it. I personally, that could be another story for another podcast. I don't like Neymar at all. I think he's a high talent, but I don't like Neymar. For me, doesn't represent Brazil at all. We might have a young generation coming, but again, they're not top players in their league. So unfortunately, I see Brazil in a very declining in terms of soccer because kids are getting away too soon and they don't have time to develop. So I don't know. But at the same time, I don't see the other. Maybe I am just naive or romantic. I think soccer got worse. I don't see the players that I used to see. I think Messi is the last one that carries that torch of high-skilled players that I used to admire. Mbappe is just, for me, he's a skill, but he's more fast than it is skill. Maybe Vinicius Junior from Brazil, but he's a left wing. He's not an overall player. So those guys like Zidane, Zico, I don't see those players anymore. I just don't.
And Marcio, part of it, I think the game, of course, has gotten, the players are constantly more athletic, but defensively, the way it's developed, where the teams drop back and they have this little umbrella about 25 yards out, and so you have teams that can soak up the pressure even if there's a big disparity on technical ability, and then they look to get that 1 or 2 chances on the counterattack. But the game is constantly gotten more defensive. And
hopefully, I don't know if you heard, but last week FIFA approved a couple of small changes, but the biggest change was the offside. So the change was, and I think it's going to be starting next year if I'm not, but the change were, and for you, Todd, offside, you have to, even if your arm is in front, it's considered to be offside, especially because of the VAR. Now the new rule is you're not offside if your whole body can be in front. If your whole body, if it's just one little part of your body that is in front, you're not going to be offside. So let's say I'm here, here's the defender. If I'm just here, I'm not going to be offside. So maybe this will push the defensive lines a little bit. Maybe it's going to be back to the old school when the defensive player would mark you, just maybe, but I don't know. Yeah. I'm feeling not very optimistic in terms of. I want to see Zico, Zidane's,
Oh my
Cruyff's.
God.
I
Yeah.
want to see that, and just the last player that I saw was Zidane. That oh my gosh, the overall guy.
It's amazing that as big as he was, you would think he was 5'4" the way he was with the ball, right? He's just unbelievable.
Amazing,
Oh,
unbelievable, and that's why every time people say, okay, actually the biggest Brazilian rivalry in World Cups is France. France always is beating Brazil. Okay. I would have everything to hate them, but actually I love them because every time that they beat us with amazing players, okay.
Right. It's with technique.
Nice.
It's not with brute force and defense. Yes.
No, it's not Argentina throwing elbows all the time. It's just with technique, with the game. So that's why I really applaud. France for me, for now, it has the best team. Yeah.
Oh, So Todd, do you think Marcio's ever going to show up with an Argentina national team shirt on the podcast?
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I don't think so.
Never.
I don't even think he loses a bet. Yeah.
Look, I carry the rivalry so strong. I love wine, and I'm a big wine connoisseur. I love wine. I don't drink Argentina wines.
No,
I don't buy Argentina meats. I just don't. That's serious. But I do have some good Argentina friends. I've been to Buenos Aires many times. I have tremendous amount of respect for the players. And one of my idols, of course, not off the field, but on the field, was Maradona. I think Maradona was after Pelé. For me, Maradona was the greatest in terms of talent. The way he was handling the ball. If you go into YouTube videos,
I know.
Watch
some of the warm-ups when he's just. Oh
my God! you gotta just applaud that. So yeah,
Marcio, just so you know, I have an Argentina connection. And I'll tell you after. So my grandfather came over in early 1900s, him and his brothers, and they opened up some candy stores in Norristown, Pennsylvania. They did pretty good. They went back to Greece. My grandfather got married, but when it was time to come back to the United States, they weren't taking any American citizens. So my grandfather with my grandmother, my father's two siblings, they were like 5 years old and under, and an aunt, they went to Argentina. And then they paid off some politicians to change their passports. And then they came to the United States. So we do have an Argentinian tie there.
There you go.
Look, and that's why I love the title of your book. That shows me a little bit. But again, I think the biggest respect that you can have for someone that is your rival, not your enemy, rival, is to kind of, okay, I respect them so much from what they can do. And I think, Brazil and Argentina are one of the greatest soccer powerhouse. We're still producing a lot of players. But anyway, and I never told my Argentinian friends, maybe they will see after this podcast. One of my biggest idols was Maradona, because I could watch Maradona play. Pelé was already retired. Maradona was just great.
And the beating he would take, like the oh my God,
That's why today, like those guys like Neymar, they took like one. Oh my gosh, Maradona was hit like all the time. He would be standing, facing the goal. So that kind of a player, Pelé, Maradona, Zico, Ronaldinho, like you
the
dribble,
beatings they took, unbelievable.
But you're gonna go through the goal.
That's part of the problem with Pulisic. I'm not comparing Pulisic to those guys, but just that his frame, his legs, he can't take it.
Yeah, but I think just the fact, as you mentioned, just the fact that we have an American player playing on the Premier League into a top team. Here in Oklahoma, every single soccer store, there's a Chelsea jersey with Pulisic. Like, I think that helps. And I want to see that more. I want to see more and more and more, like having, American players going to Europe and just playing for other teams so we can buy jerseys and we can. I still think, maybe I'm being naive, I still think that I'm going to see the U.S. winning a World Cup.
How old are you, Marcio?
I'm 47.
I just turned 67. So you have a shot. I don't think my shot's as good as yours. You have a shot.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. Thank you so much, Bill.
Yes, we really appreciate it very much. I know it's a thrill for me. And I know I would be a bad friend if I didn't ask you to give a shout out to a friend of Marcio and I's, Jason Emerson. He's a surgeon here in Oklahoma City. Grew up he was set in the Dr. Pepper Roughneck end zone. So he's a big fan of yours as well. So
yes,
yeah.
yes. He asked you to like, hey, can you give it a shout out? And
well,
yeah.
Here's a shout out to Dr. Jason Emerson, and maybe when my daughter's looking for residency, he can take care of my daughter.
That's awesome. That's
awesome.
Now it's awesome.
He takes care of all my kids that whenever they got broken stuff. Hey, Jason, please help out.
Yeah. Does he have his own practice, or he works for a big hospital chain?
No, he has his own practice. He's an amazing guy. Very well recognized, and is very specialized in sports injuries and all of that.
He's in orthopedic. Oh yeah, great.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
Okay, so
it has been a pleasure. I know we could talk all day long, and I have respect for your time, but maybe we can do it again at some point, because there's just so much. I mean, so much. Just I love talking to you. I think it's great.
Well, thank you, Todd. Great. It was my pleasure to be
very nice
for you guys to host me. Marcio, nice to meet you. Todd, great job. I'm gonna have to get to see this for sure.
Yeah. Reminder, it's on to all of our listeners on YouTube, Foxed In Sports, FOXX, Foxed In Sports. And Billy, I can send you over a link to it as well later.
If you could do that, yeah, that'd be great.
And if you don't mind, I'll copy Marcio so he has a connection with you if you're okay with that.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah. So, but we want to appreciate everybody, and thank you for everyone that has been listening, and especially thank you to Billy. For Marcio, this is Todd Fox, and we're signing off. Thank you. Join next time.
Thank you.